Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. We talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm your host, Jeffrey. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. Now, in the Big 12 on Saturday, there was a sneaky good game with the Kansas Jayhawks traveling on the road at the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Who do I think is going to win this game? Let's break it down. Now, Kansas is 6-3 and 3-3 in the Big 12 to start this season. They're already bowl eligible, and Lance Leipold, at head coach in his second season, has done a fantastic job to turn Kansas into a really good program. And this season, they are playing fantastic. They beat Tennessee Tech in Week 1, 56-10. And that was a good win. Then they won at West Virginia in overtime, 55-42. Then they won at Houston, 48-30. Then they beat Duke, 35-27. And then they beat Iowa State, 14-11. And all of these wins are wins that even last year Kansas would not have gotten when Kansas could barely win a game. Lance Leipold has really turned them around. But then they had a 3-game losing skid. They lost to TCU, 38-31 at home. This was not a bad loss. TCU's having a fantastic season. Then they lost at Oklahoma, 52-42. Oklahoma was not having as good of a season as they usually do, but it was still on the road for Kansas, and Oklahoma's still a really talented team, so not too bad of a loss. Then they lost at Baylor, 35-23. Same thing. Baylor's a really good team, and it was on the road. But then Kansas bounced back and beat Oklahoma State, 37-16. And this was a good win because Oklahoma State's having a pretty good season, but they have been struggling the last few weeks, so it was a good win for Kansas. And in that Oklahoma State game, quarterback Jason Bean had 203 yards and 2 touchdowns and 93 rushing yards and a touchdown. He's filling in for quarterback Jalen Daniels, who's been out with an injury. And Jason Bean is a fantastic backup quarterback. He was their starter last year, but now he is the backup. But he's playing now for Kansas, and he's still a really talented quarterback, a dual threat. He can run and he can throw, so he's a really solid player. Running back Devin Neal is 224 yards and a touchdown and 110 receiving yards. He is a fantastic player, a player that probably not many people even know about because he plays for Kansas, but Devin Neal is probably going to be in the NFL. He's a very talented player, and he's getting better and better for Kansas. A dual threat. He can catch the ball out of the backfield and run the ball up the middle. And wide receiver Luke Grimmon, 65 yards for Kansas against Oklahoma State, a very solid wide receiver. On the defensive side of the ball, safety Kenny Logan Jr. at 6 tackles. Linebacker Rich Miller, 5 tackles and an interception. And defensive lineman Jeremy Robinson at 4 tackles for Kansas against Oklahoma State. And Kansas on both sides of the ball is much better than they were last year. And in the past, their defense is a lot better, and their offense is way improved. Now, on the Texas Tech side, they're 4-5 and 2-4. In the Big 12 to start this season. Joey Mcguire is in his first season as the Texas Tech head coach. And Texas Tech's having a pretty decent season. They've played really good football, but they could have been a lot better if they had just won a couple of more games. But Texas Tech still can make a bowl game, so they aren't having that bad of a season. They beat Murray State in Week 1, 63-10, and that was a good win. Then they beat Houston in overtime, 33-30. That was a good win because Houston's a decent program. And then they lost at NC State, 27-14. Not a bad loss. Devin Leary was playing for NC State in this game, so that's not a bad loss for Texas Tech. And they beat Texas in overtime, 37-34, for probably their best win of the season given the opponent, and that was a great win. Obviously, Texas is a really talented program, but B. John Robinson's fumble at the end made Texas lose, so great win for Texas Tech. Then they lost at Kansas State, 37-28, not a bad loss there. Then they lost at Oklahoma State, 41-31, so 2 games against probably a team that's much better in Kansas State and Oklahoma State than Texas Tech, but they were able to hang with them. And then their most dominant win of the season, they beat West Virginia at home, 48-10. They blew West Virginia out, and it was looking like Texas Tech maybe was a lot better than people thought, maybe that they could make a bowl game do even better. But then they've lost their last 2 games. They lost to Baylor 45-17 at home, probably one of their worst games of the season, a letdown after that dominant West Virginia win. And then they lost at TCU 34-24, and not a bad loss there because TCU's having a great season, but Texas Tech is going to have to turn it around if they're going to make a bowl game. And quarterback Tyler Shudd, 78 yards, a touchdown, interception, and 9 rushing yards and a touchdown. He's the transfer quarterback from Oregon, and he started the season at quarterback for Texas Tech, but then he got hurt, and then they had Donovan Smith playing at quarterback, and then they had quarterback Baran Morton, who was playing really good football for Texas Tech, but he got hurt last week in the TCU game. So now Tyler Shutt, who's back from injury, is back at quarterback, and he's a solid quarterback, but he's going to have to get back into the swing of things from his injury. You can tell he is a little bit limited since his injury. He has to get back to his form pre-injury for Tyler Shutt and the Texas Tech offense to get back where it wants to be. Running back Cameron Valdez at 71 yards, and wide receiver J.J. Spartman at 46 yards and a touchdown. Texas Tech has a lot of great offensive players, and Texas Tech's always been known for having a great offense, so Texas Tech's still doing really good there. And on the defensive side of the ball, defensive back Dadrian Taylor at 8 tackles, linebacker Christian Merriweather at 7 tackles, and defensive lineman Jalen Hutchins at 3 tackles for Texas Tech against TCU. And Texas Tech's defense is a little bit better than it used to be, but they're going to have to improve on that side of the ball if they want to be a really great team. But their offense is very good. So who do I think is going to win this game? This game is at Texas Tech, and that helps Texas Tech out a lot because in the Big 12, a lot of times the home field advantage does really, really help. And as you can see, a lot of times teams on the road in the Big 12 really struggle. And Kansas is a much better football team this year with Lance Leipold at head coach, and they have a much better offense and a much better defense. But even as you can see with them, their results on the road are different than when they're at home. They do much better at home than on the road. So I think the home field advantage is really going to help Texas Tech. I think Joey Mcguire has his team playing really good football, and they really do want to make a bowl game. And I think that's going to have Texas Tech playing really spirited football because they're going to want to make a bowl game, and Kansas has already gotten there. But I'm going to go with Kansas to beat Texas Tech 31-28. I think Lance Leipold is going to have his team focused for a game like this. Even though they're already bowl eligible, Kansas is having a great season, and they're going to want to continue to make this season better and better. Texas Tech really wants to make a bowl game, and I think they're going to play really good on both sides of the ball in this game on offense and defense, and I think they're going to get really close to the win, and I think they can win this game. Texas Tech could easily find a way to win this game, and they are a much better team at home, but I think Kansas is going to go on the road and squeak out a win over Texas Tech 31-28. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Comment down below whether you think Kansas or Texas Tech is going to win this game and why, and I'll see you next time.